What I'm going to show you today is from this to that. G'day, how you going? I've now returned from my 2019 WA trip, and what a trip I had in WA this year. Right here, I've got just some of the gold that was coming out of these specimens. And here's a bunch of the specimens, ranging from really large specimens down to smaller stuff. The average size was around about here. Some of these have already been broken up. But just give you an idea, it's just gold all through it. So every single one of these specimens here has got gold to some degree in it. Some of it visual, like this one. This big one here, just chocolate block full of fine gold. So of course, to get the gold out, I need to crush it. So what I'm going to show you today is from this to that. Now I just show you how much material we're going to be crushing. Right here, I have 7 buckets of ore that requires crushing. Now you may have noticed this stuff is a lot smaller than that large piece of ore I just showed you a minute ago. And there's a process that I go through to get it to this stage. But essentially, this is what I need to crush during the course of this video. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it, classify it and process it along the way. So before we get into it, I'm just going to show you some of the equipment that I'm going to use today. Over here, I have a rock breaking station, and I'll explain that a little bit more in detail further along. Out here, I have a rock crusher. The other thing I'm going to need is a couple of really good tarps. I'm also going to need some tubs of water, and of course I'm going to need my classification sieves. And one other bit of equipment that we're going to be using today is down there over that little rise, and that's my wet plant. We'll get to that later. And I'm a little bit excited about today because today I've actually got someone helping me shoot this video, and I want you to meet Mick.
G'day.
And look, as a way of saying thank you to my subscribers, I just thought it'd be a great idea to get one of my longest standing ones here to help me shoot this video. So what do you reckon, Mick? Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to get into it. But to get from this to that, we need to break that down to this. And I'll show you why we need to break that down to this size. So this is my little crusher, and it's a KEENE RC1. Now this is a brilliant little unit, and it's actually an impact crusher. So it has internal workings which move at 3600 RPM. Basically the material is fed into this hopper here, goes down a tube, hits a T-section. From there it gets thrown left or right and hits a metal sidewall in here, which on impact basically shatters the material, and from there the gold drops out really nice and clean, which is one of the reasons I chose this little unit, because I like my gold to come out really nice and clean. So the reason I needed to break my material down to 1 inch size is because that is the maximum size that this unit will take. So that's why we need to break it down, and we're going to go through that process of breaking down those big rocks down to this size. A little bit more detail on my rock breaking station here. I've got a big metal plate there that's basically there to take the impact of what we're about to do. I've got a little traditional hand dolly pot over there, mortar and pestle, 3/4 size crowbar, sledges or mallets, and a bigger one for tougher rocks, a couple of brushes, and that's all the equipment that we're going to need to break up this bigger material. So the basic concept is that with these bigger pieces of rock, we whack them on the steel plate. We use either of any of those hammers down there to break up those larger sections. From there, we can break it up on the plate with the crowbar and all the smaller sections in the dolly pot, and that's where it's going to end up, all broken up down to size into that bucket. So we're going to get into it. Just a little bit of OH&S before we get started. We're going to use good quality earmuffs, and we're going to use dust masks like these up here, because when you break up quartz, you get a lot of real fine particles floating through the air. You don't really want to be breathing that in. And when we're breaking up these big rocks, it gets really, really loud. There she goes. You beauty. Just having a look at some of the stuff that came out of that large rock we just busted up, and you just see there's just like a real rainbow colouring all through it, with greens, reds, yellows, with little black streaks through it. And even though you can't see it, this little bloke here, loaded with gold. So now we've got the rock down to this size here, we can now move on to just breaking it up in this little triangle of the plate, or we can use that little dolly pot over there. It doesn't really matter which method we use, as long as we're not spraying stuff everywhere. So we're going to go on with that now. We've broken down all the rock down to the required size, and this is the result of that bucket that we just broke down. So now we've got to sweep up all this material, hence the rock breaking station. It catches all the dust. You've got to do it in a controlled environment, and essentially my rock breaking station here is my controlled environment. You don't really want any of that gold escaping. So that's why we've done it this way, and I know that there's bigger, better crushers which will take bigger ore, but unfortunately I don't have one. So we've got to make do with what we've got, and this is our solution. So this is the result. We've now cleaned up all the material from the rock breaking station, and now we've got 9 buckets ready to go into the crusher. So that's our next step, from here to the crusher. So here we've got our buckets lined up, ready to crush. And each of these buckets is going to go through the little RC1. Now the way to get this material here down to talcum powder size, so we wanted to get through the 30 mesh sieve, and we want it to be finer, even up to 100 mesh, is with this little unit here, we can do multiple passes. What I'm going to do now, and I guess this is part of how I crush, okay, and the way I crush is not the same way a lot of other people would crush, because I'm actually looking for very specific results in what I do. And the result I want is this stuff here in the pan. I want the opportunity to get some of that larger, chunkier stuff out. Now, I could do multiple passes with these buckets, put them through once, twice, 3 times, even 4, up to 5 times, and everything that comes out of this crusher would be 100 mesh and even finer, like 150 mesh, 200 mesh. But I want the opportunity to pull out some of this bigger stuff. The way I crush is I will put this material through once. Once it's done the first pass, I'm then going to step into the classification process. I'm going to dry sieve the material into different sizes, and that'll give me an opportunity to get out this bigger stuff. All right, Mick, we ready to go?
Yep.
Let's rip into it. Righto, we'll have a look at it, eh? See how she turned out. Give it a good shake. And this is what she looks like. Look at that, eh? Not bad. So that's what you get for your first pass. Still a little bit of coarse material in there. So all we need to do there is just dry sieve that out, reclassify it, and put it back through the crusher. So that's what we're going to do now with these remaining buckets. We'll put them through their first pass and reduce it to this, and from there we'll step into the classification process. Eight, 9 buckets here, we've got 1 to go.
Last one.
Last bucket, eh? Beauty. Oh, let's have a look at it, mate. Beauty. Some good gear there. So that's our buckets done. Our first pass complete. So from here now we're going to step into classifying this material down to different sizes. There's going to be some good gold on that, mate.
Hope so.
We're now going to step into the classification process. So I'm going to be classifying this material down to different sizes. Now, there are quite a few different ways of doing this. You can get your classification sieves, and you can stack them on top of each other, drop the material through, and it catches the different sizes simultaneously. I find that a bit fiddly, and in fact I find it a hell of a lot quicker just to do one size at a time. And to do that, I do it straight into a big tub. That way I'm not worrying about spillage or anything like that. I can do it fast and very effectively. From there, simply flick it over into another tub over there. Very quick process. So what we're going to start with now is we're going to start with this 1/4 inch sieve. So basically that's oversized. We need to get the oversize out, and that stuff will actually go straight back into the crusher and then get reclassified with the rest of the material. So that's what we're going to do now. Alright, so it's as simple as this. Just grab a bucket and pour it in, just like so. Very quick and easy. That's my oversize there. And it's better than fiddling around with multiple sieves, because by the time I put all this through these 10 buckets, it'll only take around about no more than 5 minutes, I reckon. Pretty quick. Very, very quick. And that's already one bucket done. Right there. So that's about the amount of oversize we're going to get per bucket, and that's all going to go straight back into the crusher. So how we going, mate? Is that the last bucket, is it?
This is the last sieve, mate.
And just have a go of that. That's the oversized from 10 buckets we put through the crusher. You can even see little bits of gold. There's a bit of gold right there, just sitting in the rock right there. This is what's left over. So this stuff now needs to be reclassified again, and this we're going to do purposefully because we're going to be setting aside each different size, and depending on the amount is how we're going to process it. And so we'll be getting into that. So just give you an idea, those buckets there, a full bucket around about 14 to 15 kilo, we'll just say for argument's sake 15 kilo of ore, crushed now down to this size. So you're looking at roughly anywhere between about 120 up to about 140, 45 plus kilo of crushings right here, and it's all got gold through it. Can't wait to see what we get out of this. We've got that oversize, we put it back through the crusher, so now we've got this size material down, and from here on we now start classification proper. What we're doing now is we're separating out the 4 to 8 mesh, so that's a 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch, and this is what it looks like when it's been knocked out. It's fairly coarse material, so this is the result of classifying out that 4 to 8 mesh, 2 and a bit buckets. I like to knock this size out because it gives me a really good opportunity to check it for bigger pieces of gold, because when you're crushing ore, more often than not, larger bits or smaller chunks will fall out of the ore, And by doing quick wet sieving, I'll be able to very quickly get that larger stuff out, because I don't want that pounded or crushed. I want to keep it nice and clean and chunky. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to wet sieve this stuff out later. So from here, we're now going to go on to the next classification size. So this is what's left after we've knocked out that 4 to 8 mesh. And normally what I would do, if there wasn't so much material, let's say I had 1 or 2 buckets, I'd break that down further from 8 to 12, then from 12 down to 30 mesh, just like I did on my video, A Quick Way to Get Gold Out of Coarse Crushings. However, we've got 140 kilos worth of material here, and that's going to be way too slow. And to process this, we want to whack it through a sluice. To run this through a sluice, we still need to knock out this fine material. Now this fine material is whatever drops through the 30 mesh sieve. So we've still got a little bit of work ahead of us. We need to knock all this fine material out of all this. And what's left will go into this container here. This is the result after having that fine stuff knocked out. So we'll have 2 classifications. Ultimately, that's what we're going to end up with. So this stuff over here will be quickly wet sieved to get the chunks out, re-dried, re-crushed. This stuff here will be sluiced separately from this stuff here. So while Mick's carrying on with the classifying all the fine, knocking all the fine material out, I'm over here now running this 8 to 4 mesh or 4 to 8 mesh through the wet sieving process, the exact same process that I use on my video, A Quick Way to Extract Gold from Bulk Coarse Crushings. And give you an example of why I've kept this coarse stuff aside. Some nice chunky bits of gold, little pickers all through it. But this is a good example of why I like to do it. And there's a nice little picker right there. I like my gold to come out nice and clean and untarnished. So that's why I set aside this big stuff. It was worth the extra time because now I've got quite a few nice pickers. So here now we've got the finished product of all our classification process. We've got 6 buckets of coarse material and 5.5 buckets of real fine material, the talc and powder stuff. Now these 2 materials will be sluiced separately. And again, I just want to reiterate for those who are wondering why I'm going to run them separately, is in this coarse material, there'll be a lot of coarser, bigger bits of gold. It gives me a good opportunity to catch that bigger, coarser gold. So once this stuff's gone through, it will then be dried, laid out on tarps, and then we'll re-crush it 4 or 5 times until it's down to this stuff here. And then of course we'll sluice that again. So we're going to run these through separately. This stuff here, we'll run it through just once and we should get some good results. So that's where we're up to now. We're going to run this material through the sluice. So let's go do that, Mick. Well, this is the little wet plant, and this is where all the fun and action's going to be taking place. Over here, we've got our buckets ready to go. We've got the coarse stuff, and over here, we've got the real fine stuff. Right now, we're going to run the coarse stuff through. I just did a little bit of a test run with some of it, but have a go at that. That is some really, really nice colour. So this here is why I want to run that coarser material through, because it's got lots of nice coarse super clean gold in it, and I want to catch that stuff because I want more than just mustard. That's what we're going to do right now, is we're going to run this coarse material through and hopefully get a lot more of that. So this is a little wet plant set up ready to go. Just a very quick explanation, sitting on an old bathtub. Like everywhere else in New South Wales, we're in drought, so I can't afford to lose water, so I've got this set up as a reticulating system. Basically got my little bilge pump in there, picking it up, taking it up to the head of the bucket, which has got a slot on the bottom of it, which serves as a beautiful delivery system. I can get a good even flow just by turning the bucket left and right, as you would have seen in my previous videos. And the action we're getting on these first 2 ripples is just superb, just beautiful. So we're going to whack the dirt through that. Down here I've got a catching system. Because I need to dry and recrush this material instead of filling up the bathtub, it goes straight into a bucket, ends up over there, going to end up on a tarp to dry out so it can be recrushed, turned into that fine powder stuff. What do you reckon, Mick? Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
That's working beautifully. Now while Mick's doing that, I'll just take the opportunity to have a look in here. This is my little setup in here. I've got the bilge outlet strapped to the back of the bucket and the good old rock. I love using the rock because what the rock does is that breaks up the initial flow, so the water is forced to go around the rock, coming out through the front slot of the bucket in a beautiful even flow. If I want to adjust the flow left or right, I can just move the bucket, or I can just even move the rock a little bit, and that gives me the perfect or the ultimate flow. You'll find there'll be a lot of gold actually sitting in the bucket, so the bucket actually serves as a little bit of a boiler box as well, so it's a great little setup. Well, we have finally got through the coarse material. Just let it run out for another 30 seconds, half a minute, and then we'll switch her off and we'll see what we've got. Hopefully, you should see a bit of good colour. Righto, Mick, switch her off. Oh, and check this out. Check this out up here, Mick. This gold sitting in here.
That's the stuff.
Got some nice colour in there, and of course there's probably a lot more we can't see. There'll be a fair bit in this bucket, I reckon. See if we can see it. A bit dirty. We'll have to have a look in a second. But that's a good sign if we can see some good colour up there before we even empty her out. Taking the hose out of the bucket. Got the bucket now sitting in this tub. I'll show you what I mean by a lot of the gold getting caught in the bucket. Have a go at that. So a lot of the gold doesn't even leave the bucket. So it's a great little boiler system. So we've knocked out the water now. We'll get some good show there at the head of the box. Some really, really nice colour. There's really no way of telling how much gold is sitting in this until we clean it out. But it's always good to see some nice colour before you clean it out. Over here in this bucket is the cons from the coarse stuff that we ran through the sluice. I'm not going to clean that out now because we're going to wait for the final clean out to see the total yield for our efforts. But that's our cons for the coarse, so now we're up to sluicing the fine material. Now this being the fine material here, there's something very important that we need to do to this before we put it through the sluice or the wet plant. And that's this. And Mick's busy doing it. Mick's a bit of an old concrete mixer from way back, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We've basically got a tub here. We're putting all this real fine stuff in, and we're mixing up essentially a bit of a concrete mix. Now the reason we're doing that is because there is super fine gold from crushing, so mustard gold, you have to pre-wet this material. From experience, I've learnt that you have to pre-wet this material before you put it into a sluice, a high banker or a wet plant. Because if you don't, that fine gold will literally just float on down and you won't catch it. So this is a really good fix for that, is you pre-wet the material. So once it hits the wet plant, it'll just disperse evenly and it'll drop down straight away and it won't float away. So that's a pretty important part of processing the fine, the real fine talcum powder stuff when it comes to crushing. Because if you don't, you're going to lose a lot of gold. So that's what we're doing now. We're doing what we call our little pre-mix here. A bit like mixing cement, as I said. Bit of wet stuff, bit of dry stuff until we get the right consistency. Once we do that, we're going to start her up. And this time we're running it through a different wet plant and put it through and see what we get. We are good to go. The Mick's doing a great job. Goes into the top hopper here. Down through the self-feeding system, down through the ripple system, and into the bathtub. Well, there you go. Black tub empty. That's all the fine material. 6 buckets. Mixed into wet cement. Now straight through the wet plant. All done and dusted. So what we've done is we've come straight up and we've started panning out the fines, or the cons, for both the coarse and the fine material. This is what we've pulled out so far. Looking pretty respectable. Now that there pretty well is represented by the 12 to 30 mesh, because what I do with my fines or my cons is I actually classify them out. It makes it easier and quicker to get the gold out. So I'm going to crack on with that. We'll finish the course, I'll show you that. From there we'll go on to the fine material. That's the result, and we've got a lot of iron in there, shavings off the crusher, and a lot of black sand, so that needs to be cleaned up. So we'll put that aside for now, and right here is the fine material, the fine cons. So I've still got to go through this dirt here, and also this dirt here, to show you what I got so far. Probably up to 10 grams just there, so that's pretty encouraging. Once again, it's full of a lot of metal filings and some black sand, so we need to get that out. I'm going to crack on and get the rest out, and we'll see what it looks like, and of course we're going to do a weigh up. Check this out, guys. This is our first run. I've still got a couple of runs to go, but this is our first cleanup, and this is the coarse material and this is the fine material. And we've got some great colour in the pans there. So yeah, really happy with that cleanup. That's very typical of what I'm going to get out of every crushing and every sluicing for every batch that I do. And as I said, I've got a lot of buckets to go, so this is just the first crushing, but this will give you an idea of how I crush and how I process. This is all the coarse stuff, and that pan of coarse gold was the result. So all these buckets here need to be refilled once this is dried. Back over to the crusher over there. The result of which, once this has gone back through the crusher, because this is still holding a lot of gold, a lot of real fine gold. So once this goes through the crusher, back down to that dust, it should get a lot more of this stuff here. It's actually amazing how much fine gold is in this material. So I've probably got another couple of cleanups to do before I can actually work out exactly how much gold I've got out of these specimens. So of course now what's left is I'm going to dry this out and we'll weigh it up. And that'll really tell us what we got for the day. And this is the finished product. I've now got the gold dried out. And the fine stuff here and the coarse stuff there. And just for those who are interested, the way I dry it out, got a good solid stainless steel bowl. So when it gets heated up, it doesn't buckle. And on a really slow heat, dry it out. So this is the result, and it's now time for the weigh up. So I'm pretty keen to see what we got. What do you reckon, Mick?
Let's weigh it up.
So we'll do the fine stuff first. And we've got 18.44 grams. How good is that? Now for the big stuff. Just tear that off. And we're looking at around about 26.8 grams. So that's pretty impressive. Got to be happy with that, mate. So what do you reckon, Mick?
Looks pretty good.
So there you have it. About 1.5 ounces in total for a couple of days worth of work. So really, really happy with that result. Well, there's a fair bit to do yet, unfortunately. Mick's run out of time, and I just want to take this opportunity, Mick, to thank you for all your help, mate. It's been absolutely invaluable.
No worries.
Definitely couldn't have done it without you. And of course, I want to throw out a big thank you to all you viewers, especially my subscribers. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching.